chained by the caveman who keeps beauty down. Smacked on the ass when they're squalling and wet. And to a spineless man who never forgets, never forgets that he's a prisoner. Can't you hear my plea? 'Cause I need somebody, Lord knows, to listen to me. I'm a stranger to my son who wonders why his daddy runs. Yeah. Welcome, peace and love. Welcome again to the NEPPC podcast. I'm Brother Frank, and usually I'm with my brother Abdul Haq Islam, former political prisoner. You know, Haq is dealing with some medical issues, so he's scheduled to be on today. If everything goes well, he'll be with us and looking forward to him. But regardless or not, the show must go on. Haq remains with us in spirit. We got to understand that there's work to do when we talk about political prisoners. We have to be consistent as they were. We got to realize the importance of making sacrifices as our political prisoners do. So that's why I'm on a podcast today, representing what needs to be represented, which is accountability. So peace and love to all who are listening. Once again, we ask you to donate $1 at Cash App, Sefu Sankofa, SEFU SANKOFA. You know, that helps our work. You know, what I'm trying to do is now collect funds to to purchase actually a camera so that I could get better footage, because I'm always challenging myself to do better when it comes to the podcast. Please note that we could be contacted at this location, P.O. Box 380122, Brooklyn, New York, 11238. Telephone number is 718-512-5008. If you want to get involved in political prisoner work, please contact me at 347-679-3936. Again, that's 347-679-3936. Also, please make time for political prisoners. Write to a political prisoners. Addresses on the screen. If you need to get an address for a particular political prisoner, you can go to one of the following organizations that are doing that: the JerichoMovement.com, Sundiata.Coley.org, RussellMaroonSchultz.wordpress.com, Imam Jamil Action Network.Weebly.com, FreeMumia.com, PrisonSolidarity.com. Those are some of the organizations who put out a website that can inform people about getting in contact with political prisoners. Please forgive me if some of the information is not up to date. I accept criticism. You can contact me on DM or contact me at my email, Sefu Sankofa, SEFU SANKOFA @gmail. My brother Abdul Haq Islam, he appears to be on right now. Peace and love, Abdul Haq. What's up, man? You hear me?
Yeah, peace and love, brother. I'm here, you
All
know.
right, so we said that you was gonna be with us in spirit, and then here you are right now, here in the flesh. First and foremost, how you doing, former political prisoner?
Oh, I'm doing all right, brother. I'm in the hospital, but Coltrane Shimaranga said I'm indestructible, so I'm all right. You
Absolutely,
know,
man. So,
still in the
you
fight.
know, our thoughts, our prayers, our meditation go out to you, man. We want you to have a speedy and thorough recovery so you could back on board doing what needs to be done in the interest of people moving forward. So I just gave people the information about how to contact anybody who's interested in writing a political prisoner. So now we're going to go on to have our session. Hey, peace and love, sister. Peace and love. How you doing?
Peace, peace. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great now that y'all came aboard, so we all could get busy and educate the people on political prisoners and, well, in the spirit of Black History, Black Women's History Month, and how it relates to political prisoners. So I just want to say that, so I was doing some research on Ella Baker, and it comes to find out that she was responsible for helping start the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was Stokely Carmichael, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael, later on Kwame Ture. He was part of that. And I think it's very important that we understand how things came into being because they don't come into being on their own. So, she was a part of that and she gave what needed to be given to that for that to take place. So when I think about her and I think about what that led, because a number of those people who were involved in that particular struggle became political prisoners. So we have to look at that and look at how that relates to today. And we have political prisoners like Joy Powell and others, right? But I'm just mentioning Joy Powell because it's Black Women's History Month. So I think that we have to relate the past to the present so we understand why it's important for us to fight to free our political prisoners. Sister?
Yeah, I definitely agree and unite with, what you were saying in terms of thinking about political prisoners and also thinking about um, you know, how political just thinking about how political prisoners came to be and what their history is, in
Yes.
terms of being a part of organizations like, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that, that educated, that gave a political education to a lot of people, which then influenced those who would later become, members of Black Panther Party, who would influence those people who were part of different Black organizations and would eventually be attacked by the U.S. government and targeted and become political prisoners. So that there's all of these connections that we have to remember and think about when we're thinking about political prisoners, that these people didn't get their political education and didn't do their work in a vacuum, but that they were connected to the larger movement for liberation of African people here in the United States and worldwide. So I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. I also think about Asada Shakur, which was which is someone who we know was a member of the Black Panther Party and became a political prisoner and is still currently a political prisoner, just in exile. So I think, we think about political prisoners often as those who are in prison currently right now, and who are, in prison within the place that, or within the nation that is the oppressor nation, but you're still a political prisoner if you have to live, in exile. Because in the same way that you're unable to see your children, you're unable to connect with your family and your community, you're unable to continue the work. Um, you're unable to do that in a way when you have to live in exile too. Like, so you have a lot of those things that you have to deal with, that political prisoners within the prison inside of the oppressor nation have to deal with. It's different, but you're a political prisoner as well. Like, the way, your imprisonment and your treatment looks different, but you are also a political prisoner. So we know that, like, Asada Shakur is one, and um she actually wrote an article that's entitled "Women in Prison: How It is with us." so I was reading that, and I thought it was actually, really interesting the way that she was talking about Black women in prison and what it's like, the dynamics that are going on. And one of the things that she also mentioned within that, because she was talking about her time at Rikers Island and the treatment and the experiences of Black women on Rikers Island. And then as she talks about, just the dynamics of Black women being in prison, um, how they are going in and out of prison and the different reasons that they may be in prison. Now, these Black women aren't political prisoners, but she's, just looking at how the prison industrial complex is affecting Black people and Black women. And then eventually she connects it to thinking about how, Black women in the movement, and also just Black women in general within our history, have played such an important role, and what we need to do in terms of thinking about Black women and history. And in a section, she says, it's called, one of the things she says is like, she brings up these questions before she goes and starts talking about her grandmother. And she says, what of our past, what of our history, and what of our future? And she talks about how Black women were, are so dynamic, and how her, Black women like her grandmother were the women who, were, like, unlike the way that we think of the way that womanhood is painted in general, or Black womanhood is painted within the mainstream media. Black women can be hard and soft at the same time, that, we're the healers and the warriors at the same time. And so when we think about that, when we think about, a woman like Joy Powell, or we think about Assata Shakur, or we think about Afeni Shakur, or we think about Fannie Lou Hamer, those women who were Harriet Tubman, all of, these women that I'm mentioning, who were medicine women at the same time, but also they were fighting for, the liberation of their people. That they were intelligent women, but they were also like women who took care of the community and the children. That they were strong and fierce women. She says, like, how her grandmother's generation, were strong, fierce women who could stop you with a look out the corner of their eyes. Women who walked with majesty, who could wring a chicken's neck and scale a fish, and who can pick cotton and plant a garden and sew without a pattern. So she's showing the dynamics of, Black women, and how, we're so like all encompassing and dynamic at the same time. And I think that's one of the things that we don't think a lot about when we're thinking about Black women in the struggle, and Black women and in them as political prisoners, and what that means for our history, and what we can think about for our future, and reclaiming our womanhood away from what mainstream media has fed us.
It's very interesting that you say that, because when women, right, as a young man being raised by a woman, obviously, and Abdul Haq as well, we look at what a woman contributes to how her child develops or becomes. Right, Kamal Siddiqui made this quote. He said, "I think I was born to be a revolutionary. Much of my influence to fight against oppression and those who advocate for it came from my mother, Hattie Rogers Hilton." And I think that has to be acknowledged, because although people might not know of his mother like we know of him, it's still a way or of upbringing that he and she, right, or if it's a female, had to have in order for them to really break down or become committed to fighting for change, for real change. And I think that we have to look at the totality of what a woman is, and this is Black History's Woman History Month, and it's very important that when we acknowledge their contributions in all areas, we have to look at the results of their work. We are the results of their work, people who are committed to fighting for a greater good. And I think that has to be understood on a very detailed basis. It has to be understood critically, so we understand what this current generation and the next generation is going to have to deal with, as far as what they're going to be committed to. It has to become through some serious educational process, a system that has to be dealt with primarily from home, right? And outside of home, then whatever information you get you could say, okay, well, that's challenging. It's gonna challenge what I'm learning at home, but at home is real. I really get the truth from. So when I look at Kamal Siddiqui, and for him to make that statement, it made me think about other revolutionaries, people like recent free political prisoner of compassionate release, Mutulu Shakur. How did he come to be who he was, or is rather? It obviously had to come from somebody who showed him, like, you better fight in this world, because if you don't, then there's people who are going to do what they want to you whenever they want, and they're going to do it as consistently as possible because you're not putting up a resistance. So I think about all of that. When you think about people like Mumia Abu Jamal, right? I know his wife recently had passed away, and she was like a real strong supporter of his. And I don't think that he would have been able to get through all the years that he got through without her contribution to his struggle for freedom, as well as people like Pam Africa, who gave so much of her life to freeing Mumia, or committing or participating in that struggle to free Mumia. So you, as a participant in the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition work, what motivates you to be involved in that work? Because this is Black Women's History Month, and you're a Black woman, and that history is embodied in you and the actions that you choose to take.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that is part of the reason why I even, do the work. And even coming into the work of doing, coming into doing work for political prisoners, I came into doing that work through a woman, who brought me in, Sister Yaa Asantewaa Nzinga, who's a warrior woman within her own right, and embodies that, that spirit, and embodies, what I was talking about before, is like, being a warrior and being a nurturer at the same time. And, thinking also about, like, my mother, and, seeing her as a warrior herself, in the way in which she, was like the strongest woman that, I know, and, just raised me and my siblings to be, independent, to think, and to, like, and to do a lot, and to do more. And so we have women all around us, and it makes me think about, like, connecting what you were saying to what Kamal Siddiqui was saying, and also connecting what Assata Shakur was saying about, her grandmother, and the women in her grandmother's situation, and how big of an impact women have on the lives of women, and also on the lives of men. I think about also the tradition, thinking about to Africa, and thinking about the ways in which women were, when we think about, like, this idea of the woman king that, we saw in the movies or whatever, but taking that a step deeper and further, when we really study, this idea of a woman king, or what the roles that women played, even, in Africa, and we look at the way that women were looked at as people of the utmost importance, where women, in many cases, and in different societies, like, let's say for Ethiopia, for example, because I attended a lecture one time that talked about, really making clear what the, the Woman King movie wasn't able to show, or, couldn't even articulate, because the real history of, and telling the story of, the role of women in Africa, when we think about, its legacies and the way things were, not necessarily the way in which things have been distorted, due to colonization in the way that we see them today, but thinking about, like, our indigenous traditional practices of seeing women as equal to men, as, playing specific significant roles. And that's not to say, like, this is all across Africa and every single African society, but for an example, like, let's say Ethiopia, when we think about Queen Menen, and we think about the Empress Haile Selassie's, I'm trying to remember her name, but she, you know, she herself was, and I forgot the specific name, but like she herself was considered to be the word, I guess loosely translated would be king, but not, but you know, you would have to know the history.
Obviously, he couldn't be in his position without her.
Yeah, and how, like, you know, when we think about even one of the things that, you know, was mentioning at this lecture that I went to, was talking about it, how black, you know, these black women, these African women were king makers. Like, you couldn't become a king. Like, if we think about ancient Kemet, the only way you could become a king was if the woman chose you to. The woman was the king maker. There was no king without the woman, without the woman. You couldn't be, you could only become a king through a woman. And so understanding, even like, you know, when people think about the ways in which women really, you know, and what women, the women's influence and what women can really do have impacted us as a society and a culture. We have to be, I think it's important for us to look back, like, you know, Assata Shakur mentioned, you know, what of our history, what of our past, to be able to come back to our own understanding of the presence and the role of women within our societies and within our families, and the major ways in which we, you know, make kings, where we make queens. Like, we are, you know, that important. That's why you see us as the backbone of, you know, many of the organizations that we can name of that really led the way, whether we're talking about SNCC, as you mentioned before, or we're talking about the Black Panther Party.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's, you know,
definitely, sister.
It directly connects to, you know, how then through the influence of women in your lives, you can come to do the work that you do. And for example, me.
Yes, yes. Well said. Well said. Abdul Haq, you got some fuel for the fire? You got some wood for the fire, brother? Haq. Well, I guess.
Yeah, I got a little something. Yeah, this worthless device of mine. This old worthless device of mine kicked me off the show for about 10 minutes. You know, so I'm just gonna try to imagine what was said. But you know, I like to say that you know, it's good to talk about those who are not with us anymore, those that are far, far away. But at the same time, you know, we got to do what Aretha said, you know, get a propers to those who are on the scene right now. Hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, brother. You say yes. Keep it going, brother.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm saying that, you know, the sister that's on the upper right hand of my screen right now, Natasha, you know, and others right now, this is in the NEPPC and other organizations like that that's fighting right now, you understand, March 29th, 2023, you know, we got to give them what Aretha was talking about, their propers, their respect, you know, and these, some of these sisters are on the battleground, you understand, raising a revolutionary war, you know, in the educational field, you know, which the enemy has magnified in recent times, you understand, and you know, through the enemy having so much to do with having their hands on our minds, you know, we go around killing each other, you know, but we see as what happened Monday that this madness, this mad culture, you understand, that we swallow like poison, you know, that we got to get out of us, you know, and a critical path, you know, to that realization, you know, is in the classroom. And sisters like Natasha are engaging in that fight, you know, which our arch enemy has decided, you know, to tell us that we cannot teach our history, you know, professors are being fired, you know, in Florida and more than 40 other states, you know, this reactionary movement is gaining ground, you know, to completely wipe out any type of consciousness. And what they with hate called being woke, which, they rather us be asleep. They rather tell us you're getting sleepy. You're getting sleepy. Your eyes are getting heavy. You a monkey. You a dog. Get on the ground and crawl. Lick the sidewalk. Lick the gutter. You understand? And but as strong black men and women, we stand up like mountains, like tall trees. You understand? And our sisters, are on the front line, in this battlefield. So I want to ask Sister Natasha, what are some of her views on this attack, that the biggest mass murderers in world history are launching right now, understand, to kill proper black education, blackness, in certain places. You're not allowed to even say the word critical race theory, to say racism, to talk about what happened to us. And as we know, history is a mighty, mighty weapon, that tells us of the way we struggled, the way we fought, and what the enemy has done to us. So I think this is a critical battlefield, and we will win this war, and especially with soldiers on the battlefield like Sister Natasha and the other sisters in the NEPPC and other organizations right now. Y'all hear me?
Loud and clear, brother.
Loud and clear?
Loud
Yes.
and clear.
Right on.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that, Hawk. I definitely, in terms of my thoughts about the education, I think, like you said, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think that this is a continuation. We know this is a continuation of the attack of on African people since on the continent and coming here and coming here and being enslaved, being captured and coming here and being enslaved. When we know that even during slavery, we know that it was outlawed to teach, a slave how to read, someone who was enslaved how to read and write.
Right.
Caught knowing how to read and write, you could have your legs chopped off, and you could be punished. And so we know that it continued and it continues today. So I don't see it as I just see it as a continuation, because just like some of white supremacy and domination is continues today. What they do to maintain, what Europeans do to maintain their domination and control over everyone who is not white, and over lands that they have stolen, over resources that they want to exploit, over people that they want to exploit. They have to continue to make sure that you aren't able to think critically, that you're unable to think your way out of it, that you don't have a political education, and that you may have a slight critique of what is going on. You may think that there's something off about it, or you may think, things aren't fair, or there are some injustices, but you can't think critically enough to really mount a real challenge to them. And so that directly connects with education and the attack on education, and the attack on education for Black people here in America. Why our we continue to be miseducated, as Carter G. Woodson said, and why those who seek to really give us a true education have been attacked along the way. So when we think about teachers who have been constantly attacked for trying to give Black people the real education that they need, that goes back to our history as well. And even so today, we still see Black people being attacked for trying to provide an education for us, a true education that allows us to really know who we are, allows us to know our true history, and allows us to be able to think critically about our current situation, and to imagine a better future, and to build a better future. So, like Sister Nzinga that I mentioned before, she was teaching in the education system here in New York, and was fired for teaching Black students that they were African.
Yeah.
Attack even against African-centered education, that there's been an attack against African-centered education. We know that not just here in New York, but people have been fired for teaching too much Black history in places like Washington, D.C. or in New Jersey, or so, and then it even continues today to what you're talking about, this attack on whether you're teaching you can teach CRT or not. And if there's a backlash against CRT, we know that the backlash against teaching African-centered education is even stronger. So we saw the independent African-centered education movement rise within the within the 80s and the 90s, and we saw the attack that came, and that was in direct connection with even within the universities, where you had Black studies programs that came out of our struggle for liberation and Black power, and then those were also attacked in the same way. And so to destabilize, just like they also attacked our organizations that we're talking about, that we now have people who are political prisoners as a result. So all of these attacks directly connect, because within all of it, you have the education. When you think about our organizations, they always had a political education aspect to it. When you think about our specific education systems, they were giving us an education. When you think about even us as a community, we were having universities where we were educating each other. When you think about the Black studies programs, that was to educate the community so that we can have people who are creating social theories and connecting with the community, and therefore having a community and let's say a community and university connection where where that would allow us to think more critically, but also to start to build, put us in different positions of power. And so that was also attacked to now, where you have even Black studies programs having no connection with communities, having professors who could care really less about Black liberation in a way, or who may think about Black liberation, but they think about it in a particular way that doesn't necessarily forward Black people beyond integration or assimilation. So I think all of that is so connected to what we see today, and I think there's always a constant move to make sure that the education that our children are receiving, that Black children are receiving, is not revolutionary, that it's not political, that it's just us thinking about who are some of the Black people who have contributed to American society, or who are some of the Black people who have who are some of the Black people who have been Black first, but nothing that goes beyond just showing you some of the people who are well known, but that kind of regurgitates the same people over and over in order to just not allow you to see the wide spectrum of what we think as Black people, but also what we've done as Black people and what is possible. That's especially when you think about Black women and the history of Black women, in education, and the history of Black teachers in education. Like when we think about even Carter G. Woodson, and he had his Negro Education Week, which then became Black History Month. A lot of his supporters and a lot of people who really made it what it was were Black women teachers. They formed a lot of the groups in the different states in which Carter G. Woodson had different Negro history groups that would do the work. They also would write in terms of even political thought and educational thought, educational philosophy. They would write in those Negro education journals too. So I think the state that it's in today, we have to recognize it as the same old, and we have to say to ourselves, okay, what is it that we need to be doing differently? How is it as a community that we can come together and support those things? When a teacher is fired, like what's our responsibility? If a teacher is willing to put their career or their job on the line and go against the system, not wanting them to truly educate our children, what is our responsibility as community members? What's our responsibility as parents? And also, what is our responsibility as those of us who are educators who want to do more, to reach out to the community, to build the types of organizations that we used to have before? We know that when we're thinking about movements aren't movements of people just by themselves. They're movements of people organizing. And how do we organize? We organize by getting and becoming part of organizations, or starting organizations, so that we can use our power as a unified front, as opposed to, you know, using our power in a way that's like dispersed across, you know, dispersed across different places in ways that we know that, like, when you're in a war, you're going to come to war as a united front. You're not going to, you know, go to war and, you know, everybody's open for attack. That it's easier to attack individuals who have, you know, instead of being able to attack a really good organized group. And even when we think about the history of Black Solidarity Day and the way that, you know, Black teachers participated in that and were organized in ways that really made an impact, where you didn't have students showing up for school, where you didn't have teachers showing up for school, and really added to the impact that Black Solidarity Day made in terms of showing the importance of Black people and our contributions to New York City and also to the United States. So I think we have important questions to answer today about our sovereignty as Black people and our control over our education. Because what is it? I think John Henrik Clarke says, you know, the oppressor is not going to teach the oppressed how to take his power.
Right.
And, you know, he goes further on to say that, you know, if you do educate them, then if they are truly educated, then they're not going to ask for power. They're going to take it. And so, you know, even when Malcolm says, you know, it's a fool who sends their child to be educated by their enemy, things like that, like those things were said, you know, in the past 30, 40 years ago. But these questions that and statements that they've made still have 100% relevance to what we're experiencing today.
No expiration date.
Yeah. And so we have to look at ourselves in this time and say, okay, what is it that we're missing? What is it that we can learn from the past? What is it that we can learn from our elders who have done the work? How can we create organizations to really support already schools that are, you know, African and independent African centered schools that where we have control, but also what can we do to address what's happening in the public school system where a lot of our students are? I think we have to do both of them at the same time. We can't, you know, and different people, you know, have different strengths. So whatever your strength is in terms of education and what you can bring to the table, you have to bring those forward. And then we have to think about, you know, as a community, how do we do that?
Excellent point. You know, but, you know, we gave the people what we give them on a weekly basis. So we about to shut it down right now. Abdul Haq, so well said, sister. Thank you for participating. Thank you for continuing to do this work. You know, we have a strong line that we are committed to. We say, don't let political prisoners die in prison. So Abdul Haq Islam, you can closing words, brother.
Yeah, I'm saying that, you know, the enemy lets us know what hurts him the most because he is so strategically stupid, you know. So we're saying that in the manner of building the pyramid where 1 attracts 10, 10 attract 100, 100 attract 1,000, that, you know, we see what the enemy is, just like I often say, when he talks about COINTELPRO, he is telling you what to do. When he tell you what he's trying to prevent, he's telling you what to do. So we're saying that in that light, you understand, as Brother Reverend explained when he said, please don't throw me in that briar patch, cut me up, boil me to oil, you know, hang me, but don't throw me in that briar patch. And they threw him in the briar patch. He said, fool, I was born in a briar patch. So, you know, we got to, in the military spirit, you know, in the act of revolutionary war, you understand, join forces with Natasha, you understand, and comrades like her, you know, Brother Frank, and in a humble way, I say Abdul Haq Islam, you know, and to know that we know what the enemy's weaknesses is. The first thing they teach you when you join a martial arts class is hit them where it hurt the most, you know. So our revolutionaries, I heard them, our warrior queens, you know, have heard this redneck on the continent and in America, you know. So we're saying to join us in numbers, you know, to swell the numbers You understand? Join this revolutionary war and we go win. And what's it called? Free them all, you know, and that's the spirit they came with. That's the spirit they came with.
Exactly. And the spirit of our warriors, women, and for Black History, Women History Month, you know, let's continue to do the work. We did the analysis of what's going on, and now let's put it into motion by taking action. So what's the call?
Free them all.
Free them all.
What's the call?
Free them all.
Free them all.
Free them all.
Free them all.